I'm really happy to be here with you today. Looking forward to this discussion, and I'll say this maybe a couple times, but really hope this will be a two-way discussion. I don't want to get up here and present for 30 minutes and then have a bunch of awkward silence at the end. So please, engage and all along the way. So real quick, and I might throw some questions out to you. So beginning of the semester, then how many lectures so far in this class?
This is
second. Okay, good. So no bar has been set yet. Then you don't have much to compare me to. So that makes me a little more comfortable up here. I'm looking forward to that.
Just one person.
Yep. All right. Well, good. So, and this might be a little different from many of the other speakers that you'll hear throughout the rest of the semester too. And hopefully you'll find it very interesting. I've loved my career. The instructions I got coming into this was to talk a little bit about my career experiences, about the industry that I work in, and some of the things that you might expect from that. So that's kind of what we'll cover here. I would like to start off with a little. There we go. Okay. I love the game Two Truths and a Lie as a little get to know you. And so we'll just hopefully get us a little more comfortable with each other. So I've got two truths and a lie. I'm assuming everyone's played this before. We're going to do raise of hands to identify the lie here. Okay, so first, I was once Brutus, the Salt Lake City Community College mascot. I have 8 children. Or lastly, I was born in Korea. So take a minute to think about that. Okay. Raise of hands. Who thinks the first one is the lie? Okay, Russ. Okay. Raise of hands. Who thinks the second is a lie? 8 children. All right. And who thinks the last is a lie? All right, so we got pretty even split here. Okay. The lie is actually, I have 8 children. So we'll step through these really quick. I have 4 children, not 8. And we live here, we just live in Sandy, Utah. My wife and I and our 4 kids. Actually, oldest has moved out now, is 20 and living in Florida at the moment. And so we'll step through. Yeah, happy to say I'm a Salt Lake Community College alumni, and through a series of events, I happened to fall into being the mascot during the year that I was here. Loved it. Claim to fame was slam dunk on rollerblades as the mascot. So no, that was a blast. Had a ton of fun. Got a scholarship for it, so it was great. Lastly, I was born in Korea. My father was in the military growing up, so we moved around a lot. And he was stationed, my family was stationed in Korea when I was born. Yeah.
Were you still a citizen of the United States because your parents are citizens here?
Yes. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Had the opportunity to dual citizenship, but my parents opted to just have me be a U.S. citizen. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Great. So hopefully that's a little bit of fun there. A little bit more about me. Favorite business books. These are my top 3 for sure. Start With Why by Simon Sinek. Highly recommend all 3 of these if you're considering a career in business. You'll notice these are much more leadership oriented. That's kind of where my passion in business lies, is more on the leadership side. Dare to Lead is another fantastic one by Brene Brown. Really opened my mind to what true leadership is and what it can look like in the business world. And then lastly, Drive by Daniel Pink, talking about how do we really motivate a workforce and motivate ourselves, find motivation in our own careers. So highly recommend all 3 of those. And anybody read any of those before? Any chance? Yeah. So yeah, you have Whitney.
I have Dare to Lead in my Audible library. So I
purchased
it.
All right. Well, good. Yes.
But it's on the list.
Perfect. Yeah, you'll love it when you do. So, and I would go in that order too. Start with why, really just so many principles applicable across many different things there that you can use. Great. Clicker's working great now. Okay, this will be our outline for today. I'll start off with what are the career options in water? I'll use my own career path to help illustrate a little bit of that. And then we'll talk about some of the challenges that we face specifically in the water industry. And then lastly, how those challenges translate to opportunities for business-minded individuals and just for problem solvers in general. This quote is what I think is an excellent theme for our discussion today. Does this have a laser pointer on it? Does not.
I don't, it's not.
That's fine. I'll be just fine without it. Love this quote by Albert Einstein on the significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. You'll see some of that in the water industry specifically. We over the centuries, decades, have done some amazing things to solve problems, to provide water to communities. But in doing so, we create other problems that we now have to solve. Okay, so careers in water. A lot of times people are surprised at just what goes into making sure that we have water in our communities and things. So I'll give you just a little bit of insights into that. First off, my career path. After starting my adult life here at Salt Lake Community College, some friends of mine convinced me to go up to Utah State with them, which turned out to be a really fortunate thing. I started here in the pre-engineering program here at Salt Lake Community College, transferred up to Utah State, entered their civil engineering program thinking I was going to design buildings, but then realized that the architects get all the cool stuff and the engineers just have to figure out how to make it stand up. So sizing, determining how big a beam is going to be. So then I had that moment of, oh, I don't want to do that the rest of my life, and fell into a job at the Utah Water Research Laboratory at Utah State University up there, and found this amazing world that I've always been intrigued by water. I love the outdoors, and particularly where water is where I like to be outdoors. And it's just this fascinating world of how we can borrow water from the environment, use it in society, and then return it back, clean it up, and return it back to the environment, hopefully without causing any harm in the process. So then I got my first job out of school with an international consulting firm called MWH. They no longer exist. They've been bought out by another bigger international consulting firm. But was with them for just a year as an engineer in training, and then went to a national firm that was about 10th the size of the first one. So 1,500 employees at Brown and Caldwell, in the same line of business as a consultant. We'd get hired to do design work or help plan water systems for cities and things there. And then after about 8 years, had some opportunities to transition into the business management side of the consulting world with Brown and Caldwell. And so made that transition, and that's where I started to really get into where I had some direct leadership roles, direct business strategy, business plan, development type roles there. First as the Utah operations lead for this national firm, serving all of our clients here in Utah. And then as national service lead for digital solutions. So taking the latest in digital technologies, the water industry happens to be a little behind in the adoption of digital technologies. just because some of the risks that are there. We can't afford to make mistakes in providing drinking water to people. And so there's a little bit of a lag. So I had the exciting opportunity to help drive faster adoption of these digital technologies in that role. Really loved that. In those roles, one of my key clients was Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District, where I currently work. And so I had worked for them for 8 years doing work on a contract basis. And they approached me. They had some succession planning things going on as their general manager was retiring and things. So they brought me on as deputy general manager as part of that succession plan there for them. So that's a little bit about my career path there. Let's see what's on the next slide. I might pause for questions. So I'll tell you a little bit about Jordan Valley, but any questions on career path stuff? Okay, we'll have more opportunity here into it. So a little about Jordan Valley. So we serve, well, we're political, we're called a special district, so political subdivision of the state of Utah. And we were created to provide water to the cities outside of Salt Lake City. Basically, yeah, outside of Salt Lake City, all the cities here within the valley. So there was water. All of the available water sources were really committed, and there's a need to reach further and further out to bring water into those cities to be able to provide for the growth. And that's why Jordan Valley was formed to serve that need. And so many people don't know, but a lot of the water that about 2/3 of the water that's consumed in the Salt Lake Valley comes from the Provo River and the Colorado River Basin. So we import that water. That's our role, is to help bring that water over from, so it gets stored in Jordanelle, it's stored in Deer Creek Reservoir, it's stored in Strawberry Reservoir. We intercept that water, and then it gets piped from down around the mouth of Provo Canyon up through 3 different pipes. These are big pipes, like 6-foot diameter pipes that bring that water into the valley, where we then treat it at our Jordan Valley Water Treatment Plant or our Southeast Regional Water Treatment Plant. This is in Harriman, and this is in Sandy. And then we have a third water treatment plant we refer to as our Southwest Groundwater Treatment Plant, which is really cool. Actually cleans a polluted groundwater plume from the mining operations. We pull that polluted groundwater out, treat it, and then that produces clean drinking water as a byproduct. So kind of cool. That's a little bit about us. These are the member agencies. We refer to them as member agencies, but the various cities that we serve. So you can see Draper, South Salt Lake, up here, Midvale, and then basically all of the cities west of I-15. And that's about 800,000 people in total there. Okay, we, like you would expect to see from many businesses, our goal, differing from businesses, is not to maximize profit, but we maximize the value that we provide to the community. So that is our goal, and it takes very careful business and strategic planning in order to do so. So we have a strategic plan, just like you would expect most businesses to have. Was really happy to be able to participate in this as one of my first tasks here at Jordan Valley, and really excited about some of the outcomes of that plan. one of which is our update to our mission, vision, and values that you would commonly see from many businesses. So our mission is to provide clean, reliable water through responsible stewardship and quality service. And that mission is all founded on this vision that we have, that both a thriving community and thriving environment can exist here in the desert. There are whole books written about how we shouldn't be here, that we're in the second driest state in the country.
So Utah, the second driest state in the country.
Depends on how you look at it, but that's the most commonly, referred to metric there is that, we are, it's back and forth between us and Nevada is really, so Arizona's the driest, kind of back and forth depending on how you slice it.
So Utah is commonly one of the top 3 driest states.
Yes, yeah, great questions. Feel free to jump in with any questions along the way. That's exactly what we're hoping.
So I have a question about the water. With the water, is it like do you provide that to certain contracts or how does that work? Like, how do you supply clean water?
Great question. So we do with each one of those cities, we have a contract, or they have a contract with us. And those contracts are, they have to be structured very, there's a very particular way they have to be structured because we're making investments basically in behalf of these cities. And the full capacity of that infrastructure. So we're investing in that infrastructure, the big pipes, the big treatment plants, the big pump stations to move that water. And we won't use the full capacity of that for 50 or 60 years.
Wow.
Right. So that's our role as these cities, they have needs now, and they're looking out how much they plan to grow in the future, 50, 60 years out. And then, so we exist to help make sure that water will be there 60 years from now. And those contracts, they have to be structured such that we can afford to pay for that infrastructure now. Obviously we issue debt in order to pay for that infrastructure. We pay for it over a 30-year period based on how those contracts are structured. Great question. Yeah.
So do you reconstruct contracts right before they're about to expire, or do you do it like months in advance?
So that's the very unique thing is our contracts are perpetual. Yeah. So there is no, once an entity enters in with us, there's a very rigorous legal process that would have to go through in order to get out of that contract. It has happened in the past, but there was definitely a fair trade of value for the remainder of our member agencies there. Great question.
With 17 member agencies, is it hard to get everyone to kind of work together and have similar goals?
I am loving these questions. This is fantastic. So, yes, it's, I have the advantage of coming in after the real hard part of that was done. That was actually, decades ago. There was some, real challenges of establishing, what is the protocol for making decisions and things like that. To help with that, we have a governing board of 9 members, and those 9 trustees, we refer to them, trustees on our board of directors, or board of trustees, sorry. They are there to represent those 17 member agencies and to be voice for them and for the communities that they serve. And so thankfully over the decades, that dynamic has really been refined very well. And so we now enjoy some fairly seamless decision-making through all of that. The trust has been built, many decades ago. And so So it's not as complicated now as you might think it would be. A lot of that's due to the culture that we enjoy here in Utah, of just collaboration, and then a lot of the hard work that's come from my predecessors. Great questions.
How much control do you guys have on the water levels in each of those reservoirs? Or is that just dependent on, it was a great winter, we have more water?
So that is the ultimate factor in those water levels for us. But like we saw in the reservoirs there, those reservoirs exist to give us some control over, these are the piggy banks for us. These, and then including Strawberry Reservoir, and actually Utah Lake is also used as kind of a piggy bank. So we get to make decisions from one year to the next based on how much natural stream flow we'll get, how much we need to supplement that with water from those reservoirs. So like the last 2 years, we had more stream flow than we could possibly use. So we were able to refill those reservoirs, which were at a very low because the 5 years before that, we had nowhere near the stream flows to serve our needs. And so we were drawing from those reservoirs just like a piggy bank. So, yeah, great questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you have competition in the market or more of a monopoly?
That is, yeah, we don't like to refer to it as a monopoly per se, but yeah, that is the thing. We take that responsibility very seriously in, like we mentioned, maximizing the value that we provide to the community, because we acknowledge our customers, our member agencies. That's why we refer to them as member agencies. They don't really have another choice, and so it really is a significant responsibility that we feel to provide the highest level of service that we possibly can for what is affordable to the communities that we serve.
I asked because my eyes aren't that great, but I didn't see Sandy on there, and I wondered if different municipalities can opt out from working with you, or.
Correct. So that's actually an example of, so Sandy City used to be one of our member agencies. And so in their case, so I guess there is somewhat of competition. They actually, so Salt Lake City, they formed what's called a Metropolitan Water District. So we're a water conservancy district. Salt Lake City formed a Metropolitan Water District, which there's some legal differences between the two. Sandy opted to, for a number of reasons, this was in the 80s, join the Metropolitan Water District, which is now Metropolitan Water District of Salt Lake and Sandy, as opposed to our services there. Yeah, great question. Really good. Yeah.
Is the demand strictly for potable water, or do you guys also put contracts for non-potable water for other applications like mining, industry, agriculture?
Yep, very good question. So our focus is strictly on municipal and industrial use. So potable is what we deliver. We have established some water exchanges with canal companies, so that we could exchange some of our lower quality water that is perfectly good for agricultural uses, but not good for drinking water consumption, right? So we've exchanged some of those water rights for the higher quality. So we do deliver some ag water, but it's on an exchange basis. So there are other water conservancy districts in the state that they do directly provide both ag and municipal and industrial. But the way Jordan Valley formed is our focus is on the municipal and industrial. Great questions. So here and then.
I just want, what's your focus on again?
So it's municipal and industrial water use so it's for drinking water, potable water is what we refer to it. that gets used by municipalities, cities, and commercial, industrial, institutional users. Well, for being a water nerd, I did not expect this many questions. I am like thrilled. This is fantastic. So we'll go here next and then the back of the room.
So I was just wondering what you think about like the EWG and the contaminants in the water that we consume. Is your team doing something to mitigate that contamination? For example, arsenic is 517 times legal limit in my district, which is the Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District. And chloroform is 66 times legal limit. So I'm just curious about what you guys are doing.
So, and are you getting those numbers? So we issue a consumer confidence report every year. And it would not necessarily, I guess, be consistent with what you just stated there.
Sure.
So we monitor arsenic, is one of many parameters that we monitor. Chloroforms, also, and so the data that you're looking at is what's the source on that data?
The environmental working group, the EWG.
Okay,
So basically you just like put your zip code in and they have information and data on each like zip code and municipality. So I put mine in and that's kind of what came up.
okay, awesome. Yeah, so I'm not familiar with that, but this is fantastic because I will go back to the team and find out from them, if that's a source that we have been monitoring and look at with that.
Cool.
I would just question maybe some of the facts that they're presenting there because we pride ourselves on providing the highest level of water quality that we can. We base it all off of the EPA, so Environmental Protection Agency is a big federal agency that they regulate what the drinking water standards are in the US. Every public water system has to meet those standards. And so we've intentionally set goals for ourselves that far exceed those EPA standards. And arsenic, chloramines, chloroform would also be part of those standards as well. So I'm very confident that we're well above those regulated limits there.
What was it called that you guys publish?
So it's the consumer confidence report. And so if you just searched Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District Consumer Confidence Report, you'd be able to find that. We publish that online and send it out to all of our customers.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Great questions. Okay, back of the room.
You said that 2/3 of the water that we consume here is from Provo and where?
So the Colorado River Basin. So that was a big part of, so Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District was one of the first contract holders to the Central Utah project, which I don't know if anyone's heard of that, but it was a big federally funded project to develop Utah's share of the Colorado River. That's the Central Utah Project. And so we tapped into rivers that feed into the Colorado, like the Duchesne River, and a lot of the rivers that come off the Uintas, pipe that water to Jordanelle or to Strawberry Reservoir, and then it comes down the rivers, and then we then pipe it here into the Salt Lake Valley. So yeah, all the Colorado River, if you've heard any of those discussions, the big kerfuffle that is there's the lower states, California, Arizona, Nevada, versus the upper states, which is Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, and New Mexico. There's a lot of contention on who has rights to what amount of water there. So one of the things we do is participate in those discussions to make sure that Salt Lake Valley is being represented well there. Okay, this is awesome. I'm loving it. Hopefully you guys are finding, getting what you need out of it there as well. Let me advance. I'll go a little bit more quickly through some of this. So we are one public water system of 150,000 in the US. So again, the EPA regulates all 150,000 of those public water systems. And then there's 16,000 wastewater systems as well throughout the US. So there are lots and lots of needs. We'll go quickly through some of the problems that we all face. There's lots of needs and lots of problems to solve. And there's really these four kind of categories or paths in which to dive in and solve problems and get paid to do so. You can work for one of the regulatory agencies, the EPA being one of those, like I mentioned, at the federal level. At the state level, there's the Division of Drinking Water for Utah, Utah Division of Water Resources, Utah Division of Water Quality. Lots of different state entity regulators as well. So we, as a water provider in the second category, we answer to all those regulatory agencies to make sure we're in compliance with the laws, the regulations that have been established there. So there are three primary different types of water providers. Cities, like we talked about, have their own water systems for the most part, where they will distribute water to each home and business throughout their city service area. Then there's special districts, like we are an example of a special district, Jordan Valley, and we happen to be a wholesale water provider. There are special districts that are retail water providers as well. And then private companies. So it's not something you see as much of here in the US, although the Boise, Idaho is entirely a private water company that serves all of their customers throughout the city. It's much more common in Europe to see private water companies throughout there. Then there's a whole host of consultants and contractors that help serve the water providers. That's consulting anywhere from architecture and engineering to the various business consulting activities, PR, other kinds of consulting work that we would need. And then construction contractors. There are a lot of construction firms that are just specialized in water because it's such a complex and unique area. And then vendors, from software to equipment to materials like chemicals, other things like that serve the industry. So that hopefully gives you an idea of the different kinds of paths and business opportunities that exist there. Okay, industry challenges. I'll go through this a little bit quickly. There's an association that did a survey of all those public water systems. These are the top 20 issues that were identified through that survey. And they resonate with Jordan Valley's experience very much so. So it's particularly these top four. We'll step through those quickly. So first is the aging infrastructure. There's some statistics along the bottom that are countrywide. The key takeaway here is there's a lot of the infrastructure here throughout the valley. The big infrastructure was built in the 70s and 80s. Typically, this infrastructure has a 50-year useful life. So we're really coming up on when that infrastructure needs to be renewed or replaced. So lots of needs there. The cost to do so is just going up enormously. This shows you the kind of impacts of inflation. So this is the construction cost index. So the numbers may not mean much to you, but the trend. You can see that steady climb starting back in the 80s. Steady climb up and up and up of the cost of construction materials. Then we hit COVID years, and there's a 50% increase over 2 years in those costs. So very, very challenging to the industry to address that. Probably all heard of the challenges with the Great Salt Lake. This goes to those problems, that Albert Einstein quote, thinking that we use to solve problems in the past may not help us to solve the problems that thinking created. So it is a fact that human consumption is contributing to the shrinking of the Great Salt Lake. That creates several challenges with it. Highlighted by all of this exposed lake bed is one of those challenges. Then also significant environmental impacts to migratory birds and things like that, which are a valued thing for the communities that we serve. So big challenges there. Lastly is the staffing challenges. So the orange line, this is across every industry, right? But 60s, you have this huge birth rate, which is declining over the years, and that's directly reflected in our workforce. And so that big surge in the 60s is now all retiring, and there's just not the employees there to replace them. So as Jordan Valley analyzed these challenges, we did a SWOT analysis as part of our strategic plan. For those who may not be familiar with that term, that's a SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So it's a very common business planning activity where you look at those 4 categories and you look at your weaknesses and threats, what strengths and opportunities that you might have in order to address those weaknesses and threats. And as we did so, we came up with these 5 core imperatives for us to address those weaknesses and threats. And for sake of time, I won't step through these because I have a really hard time talking about them quickly, but they're there for you to look at. And okay, so I wanted to translate this to individuals at the individual level. So what does this mean for opportunities for us? So the prompt I got for this discussion was to provide any advice that I might have for the participants here in the course. And this is something, these 3 elements are something I have found to be invaluable to my own personal career and invaluable to the industry that I work in solving problems with a new way of thinking. Okay, so it starts with first, learn to improve workflows. So raise of hands. I know many of you may just barely be beginning into this world of business, the business learning and mindset. Have you talked much about business processes and workflows in any of your courses? Okay, so we've gotten into that a little bit. So it's something I wish I would have been introduced to much earlier in my career. It's such a critical thing for us to be able to do to address all of those problems we talked about. Making our business processes more efficient is part of the answer to every single one of those problems. So learning how to do that is one word of advice that I would give to everybody. It will make you a very valuable resource in a world that is changing very rapidly. This is something that will help you be part of that change rather than be left behind by it. That is also very much true with number 2, which is partnering with technology. And so a lot of people will start with that partnering with technology, but where this really gets powerful is where you apply this to making those workflows more efficient. So I like to start with, how can I make a business process more efficient? How can I identify, first off, identify inefficiencies in a business process? And then one of the tools to make it more efficient is partnering more effectively with technology to do so. So that combination is a winning combination that if you can get good at it, you can be highly valuable in a whole lot of different industries. And then lastly is getting good at change. And I love this icon because it's so descriptive. Nobody likes to change, just like no one likes to change a dirty diaper. But if we can get good at helping people change, you can bring a lot of value to society in general and to any company that you're working for or any business that you might be starting to help other companies with problems that they have. So I got a lot of material on that, but I want to let the questions guide what material I go to in our last few minutes here. Do we have 3, 4 more minutes?
We got 7 minutes.
Okay. All right. So questions on these 3 things. Do we have questions on that? If not, I'll jump to my favorite of them.
When it comes to workflows, is that just your your own work ethic, or is it like the whole group?
So group, so that's where it gets really complex, right? Let me show you an example.
And like you probably got to get some leadership because no one wants to follow a leader who's just sitting there. Yeah, they'd rather work with someone if their actions match with their words.
Yep. Yeah, very much so. And then also providing clarity to when you have a whole team that's involved in achieving some objective. And this team has to work together through some process, right, to get to that end objective, making sure it's clear who's doing what and how to do that most efficiently way possible. So let me show you an example. So these are all the different kinds of workflows that exist, and this is just a small sample for a water utility, right? Clicking through those. So then this is what one of those workflows looks like. So this is one thing, encroachment agreements, I won't get into that, but each one of these is a different role. So these are team members here, right? And then going this way, these are different phases of that business process. And then each box is a task that has to be accomplished in that phase. So learning how to break those business processes down in this way is a very helpful skill to help. Then once you have it down like this, you can then identify, okay, where are we touching something multiple times where we maybe don't have to? Maybe we can skip over a whole group of people. It's just been that way forever. And so we just keep doing it that way and it's not necessary. So really putting it down on paper like this helps to identify where those inefficiencies are. And so that's what we're talking about when we're talking about business processes. Great question. Anything else on those 3 items? Let me hit technology. Let's see, what do we want to hit with? Okay, I love this quote from Steve Jobs. We won't play this now, but I highly recommend look up this video if you haven't seen it before by Steve Jobs, Bicycle of the Mind on YouTube. He talks about, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. They looked at the locomotive efficiency of different species, from humans to all different kinds of species. And the California condor is the most efficient creature on Earth, is what they found. And so it can cover large distances with very minimal amount of energy. But then he talks about, but if you put a human on a bicycle, it blows the condor out of the water. And so he talks about how, now I've ridden a bike and I don't know that I would agree with him, but that's what he says. And so, and then he makes that association with that computers are really the bicycle of the mind. That's where that partnering with technology comes into play. You all are at the beginnings of a whole new world of AI and how that is changing things, and how that partner, that technological partner, has the ability to make each of us as individuals so much more effective, so much more capable. There's some really exciting opportunities there. We can embrace that. So this was how we did it. We used ChatGPT to help us with our strategic plan stuff. And it by no means did it write the strategic plan for us, but we had massive surveys that we were able to dump into ChatGPT and ask it to summarize those surveys for us. So we did massive employee surveys with hundreds and hundreds of data points. And rather than have a person go through, summarize all that, we were able to have ChatGPT do that so that we could then draw insights that we then wrote the plan from. So one example, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. So you mentioned AI. Where do you see the company headed in 10 years with AI? I know you said that a lot of people, that a lot of people aren't working. So would that be more efficient towards your company, or would that cause people to be laid off?
Such a good question, right? So I am so relieved that we have AI as a potential partner. Because of those staffing workforce issues, there is no way we would be able to meet the workforce demands that we currently have on our organization if we don't make full use of AI. So what it does for us, instead of needing to grow, we have 160 employees at Jordan Valley. And if you take technology out of it, we need 40 more employees based on how much our system will grow. There is no way our community can afford for us to hire 40 more employees at the rate that we would have to pay them, given the competition in the market right now. And so we can, with our 160, we can do the work of an additional 40 with AI. So we are so far from being able to leverage AI to do the work that we need to do that, yeah, there is no threat of us laying employees off by using AI. It's a great question. Okay, I think we are at time. Last plug. This will be a game changer for you. Wish I would have discovered this earlier in my career. ProSci is an organization that is dedicated to the practice of change management. They've developed a couple things, this ProSci methodology, and then at the heart of that methodology is the ADKAR approach. That is helping, this is the science of helping people navigate their natural reaction to change. So helping people and organizations navigate the human's natural reaction to change. Game changer, highly recommend. You can do a quick website search or go to that prosci.com. Lots of really valuable information. Look up the ProSci methodology and the ADKAR approach there. Yeah, great information. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun for me. Great questions. Great to see what you all are interested in, and so really appreciate the opportunity.